Hello everyone, what is happening? I'm your host Ayman Hassan and welcome back to another video here at Most Amazing Top 10. So you guys really like knowing which games have been banned or are illegal to play. Is that like a reverse psychology thing? I list all the games that are banned and that you shouldn't be playing and you guys somehow want to play them even more? Is that what's going on here? Well, no fear, because I'm back with part 2. As always, like and subscribe to the channel and top 10 Hindi videos if you can. We post videos regularly, so why not have some more entertainment? And just to remind you guys, as per the last video, most of these games are banned in a certain part of the world, not everywhere, so some people have played these games whereas some people have not. Just putting it out there, you know, just in case. But anyway guys, let's just get straight into it. This is the top 10 games that are illegal to play part 2. Starting us off with number 10 is Thrill Kill. Now this game was developed by Paradox Development for the PlayStation and it was meant to be released in 1998, but its release ended up getting cancelled altogether. Thrill Kill was a very hyped up game. Gamers were even coining it the next Mortal Kombat, which is a very big statement to make. Now what happened was that EA had acquired Virgin Interactive, who was going to publish the game, and weeks before its release EA decided to cancel it because they didn't want to publish such a senselessly violent game. Either way, the cancellation didn't stop former employees from releasing the game in the group Tasty. Thrill Kill ended up becoming one of the most widely available unreleased games ever developed. The game itself involves a room where 4 people fight to the death and then end the fight with a thrill kill, which pretty much sounds like half the fighting games on the market right now, but whatever. The more attacks your player makes, the higher their bloodlust rises, and once it's full they become electrocuted and endowed with a superhuman strength, and they can finally perform the thrill kill. Now the game sounds like any normal combative game, but the game included sexual content like fetishistic and BDSM looking costumes, and players had special moves with unnecessarily provocative names like Swallow This and Slap. Coming in at number 9, we have Pokemon. No Pikachu, I choose you? What do you mean? And Ayman, what do you mean Pokemon is on this list? I play it all the time. Hold on people, hold on, let's just relax for a quick second. Pokemon, Pokemon Go, and the TCG and most of its predecessors are banned in Saudi Arabia. Back in 2001, the Mufti, which is the highest religious authority in the country, banned the game, claiming it promoted gambling with children because sometimes they had to pay money in exchange for the cards, and it promoted Zionism. The religious edict stated the energy cards had symbols on them that resemble the Star of David, which is the national emblem of Israel. The country's senior cleric Sheikh Abdul Aziz bin Abdullah said most cards have symbols like triangles, significant for Freemasons, and crosses sacred for Christians. But Saudi Arabia is not alone. Some organizations in Slovakia say that TV shows based on the game are detrimental to children, and a Christian church in Mexico even deemed the game demonic. Now what do you guys think? I've played Pokemon Go, I really like it. I'm not opposed to the games. I know a lot of people aren't, but what are your thoughts? At number 8 now is Omega Labyrinth Z. Now this is a sequel to Omega Labyrinth, which is a dungeon crawler role-playing game published by D3 Publisher for the PlayStation Vita. The original follows a group of girls exploring a dungeon looking for the holy grail of beauty, which can grant the finder any wish they want. Wouldn't we all want one of those? The main girl, Aina Akemya, wants to find the grail in order to increase her breast size. The sequel, Omega Labyrinth Z, was released in Japan back in 2017 for the PS4 and the PlayStation Vita. The original group of girls are in the sequel, as well as some new characters, and in this one they're exploring a cave at a girls' academy. It was originally going to be released in the West at the start of 2018, but it was refused classification in Australia and the UK. Then mid-year P-Cube announced the game's Western version had been cancelled since Sony Europe and Sony America had blocked its release. Many scenes were deemed problematic because they involved sexual stimulation of the young characters and undressing them as well. During some mini games, the player has to touch points on the girls' bodies to arouse them, and if they succeed, they activate a shame break where parts of their clothing starts coming off. In another minigame, the player puts honey on the girls' bodies, whereafter a dog-like creature of some kind has to lick the honey off their bodies while they respond with sexualized language. And again, their clothing comes off too. I don't know how this part aids the girls in finding what they're looking for, but Sure. Filling our number 7 slot, we have Bully, or as it's known in the European market, Dog Eat Dog. Now this game was published by Rockstar Games for the PS2 way back in 2006, which honestly seems like a lifetime ago. The story is set in the town of Bulworth, and you're a student who's trying to rise in the social ranks at school. I feel like that sounds like any school in real life, but anyway, like GTA, you're free to roam the town as you please. You play as the character of Jimmy, who goes to Bulworth Academy and soon realizes the school is filled to the brim with bullies. The game initially caused a lot of controversy amongst educators and parents who thought the game was glorifying school bullying. Yahoo Games even listed it on their list of top 10 most controversial games of all time. The game was flat out banned in Brazil, their state psychology society claiming it would be harmful to teens and adults playing it. Currys and PC World, both owned by Dixon's Retail, one of the biggest electronic retailers in the UK, also refused to sell the game, saying it didn't go with their family-friendly image. Organizations like Bullies to Buddies argue the game is more to do with uniting groups of students rather than being a bully. What do you guys think? Should it be banned or not banned? Now at number 6 is Command & Conquer Generals. Now this series of PC games is pretty well known. This one is the 7th installment in the series, and it was released back in 2003 by EA Games and Aspire Media. Now in the game's campaign mode, you can choose to play as China, as the US, or for the Global Liberation Army, which is a decentralized terrorist force waging a guerrilla war against China and the US. At the beginning of the game, the GLA steal a nuclear warhead and actually blow up a big part of Beijing and Tiananmen Square, and if that's not bad enough, later on in the game the group also destroys the Three Gorges Dam. And obviously you can probably guess none of this went down well over in China, and so they banned not only this installment of the series but the whole series altogether. The game also created controversy in Germany. The Federal Department for Media Harmful to Young People put the game on the list of media harmful to young people, any advertisements of the game, and banned people under the age of 18 from buying it. Back then the Iraq War had not yet taken place, so the Federal Department said it allowed people to play in the war in Iraq before it had even happened. EA then released a localized version which didn't include any real countries or any relation to terrorism whatsoever. Have any of you guys played this game? Should it have been banned? Let me know. Coming in at number 5 is Mad World. Mad World is a beat-em-up hack and slash video game published by Sega for the Wii and was released back in 2009 and had a delayed release in Japan a year later. The game is divided into different levels, all representing various parts of Jefferson Island, which has basically been converted into the sets of a game show called Deathwatch. You control the character of Jack from a third-person perspective, and you have to go through the levels by killing people and gaining points. Once you gain enough points within a certain time limit, then you're faced with the boss fight, as you are in pretty much every fighting game. Every level has a bloodbath challenge where you kill people in a very bloody way, like trapping enemies in front of a moving train or hitting enemies with a bat onto a giant dartboard in order to score points. Many people didn't agree with the message of the game, and that being blood sports, and the game was banned in Germany. The UK also had a lot of media watchdogs calling for the ban of the game. The director of Media Watch UK stated, "We have to ensure that modern and civilized values take priority rather than killing and maiming people." Despite his efforts, the game got a mature rating instead and was not banned at all. Campaigners in the US were also angered by the game and asked for a ban, claiming they were disappointed that the Wii was releasing a game like this that seemed to deliver every rude gesture in the book. At number 4 is Football Manager 2005. I know you're probably thinking, okay, this is a football game. There's definitely no risk of violence or underage nudity or anything like that, so how on earth and why on earth is this game on this list? Let's find out. Now, Football Manager 2005 was the first game in the Football Manager series, developed by Sports Interactive and published by Sega back at the end of 2004. As the title suggests, the game lets you manage a football club, including all the admin stuff that comes with it, like analyzing financial spreadsheets, reading emails, dealing with player training, etc. However, the game actually got banned completely in China because the game lists Tibet and Taiwan as separate independent countries. If you're not familiar with why that would be an issue, it's because of the One China policy and China exerting sovereignty over Tibet and Taiwan and claiming both places are under China's rule and jurisdiction and are not independent countries at all. Hence, since China banned the game, claiming its content is harmful to China's sovereignty and territorial integrity, which seriously violates Chinese law and has been strongly protested by our nation's gamers. That was a direct quote. Sports Interactive replied by saying that version of the game wasn't released in Chinese because it wasn't meant to be released in China, so the versions people were playing were imported or downloaded. People can be fined up to $3,600 if they're caught selling the game, and business licenses could also be revoked. They even went as far as to say internet service providers who failed to prevent the installation or download of the game could also be shut down for good. Filling our number 3 slot is CARMAGEDDON. Smart pun for the name, just throwing it out there. But anyway, the game is a vehicular combat PC game released in 1997. As you can probably guess from the title, the game involves you racing against a bunch of other computer-controlled cars in various places, whether that means metropolitan areas or industrial ones. You have a time limit in which you have to finish each race, but you can increase your time limit by damaging other people's cars or running people over, or even hitting cows in your way. Poor cows. There are 3 ways to finish each level. 1, you can finish it normally just by racing and finishing it. 2, you can kill all the pedestrians in the level and finish the race. Or 3, you can wreck all the other cars in the race and then finish. The choice is yours. But when the game was released, it was quite censored in the UK and Germany, and their version of the game had zombies in it that had green blood, or robots that got run over because that was more acceptable than running over real people. Now, the British Board of Film Classification actually refused to even certify the game unless all the gore and blood was removed, but eventually, after 10 months of appeal, the BBFC certified the original. The game is still banned in Brazil, and it's deemed as 18+ in places like Portugal and Australia. Personally, I think this one is really quite harmless. I feel like there are so many games worse than this, but what do you guys think? Agree? Disagree? Let me know. Now at number 2 is KZ Manager MILLENIUM HAMBURG Edition. Now this is a resource management PC game that puts you as the manager or commandant of a Nazi concentration camp. I know, very problematic. Now the resources you have to manage are money, equipment, prisoners, poison, public opinion on the productivity of the camp, and gas supplies. Your goal is to keep the camp functioning by keeping all the resources under control. If you spend too much money and don't kill enough people, then public satisfaction drops. Germany banned it for obvious reasons, and it even won the most unnecessary Game of the Year award in the 2001 IGN Awards. I found that really funny, the fact that there's an award for most unnecessary game. Like, that's hilarious. And finally, at number 1 is Rule of Rose. That's quite a lovely name, I'm not gonna lie, but was the game as lovely? Let's find out. Released in Japan by Sony Computer Entertainment for the PS2 in 2006, Rule of Rose was a survival psychological horror game set in England in the 1930s. The game revolves around a 19-year-old called Jennifer who ends up getting trapped in a universe ruled by young girls who've created a hierarchy called the Red Crayon Aristocrats. She has to navigate the world with her canine sidekick Brown while encountering enemies and using tools around her to fight them off. Most of these enemies are very small imps. Before the game was even released, it caused moral panic in Europe based on rumors causing authorities to want to ban the game. The game was cancelled in the UK and was set for an American release, but then Sony also passed on the release, saying they wanted the game to be tamer. Rumors were circulating about the game, citing the fact it had violence towards children in it, like them being buried alive, underage eroticism, and in-game sadomasochism. The EU Justice Minister at the time, Franco Frattini, went after the game, claiming it had obscene brutality and cruelty. Its release was also cancelled in Australia and New Zealand. Developers of the game called Frattini's claims utter nonsense and frankly made up, saying there's no children being buried or eroticism in the game. And that's it for today's video. Let me know if you guys have played any of these games on the list, if they aren't banned where you live. Are they truly worth the ban, or should they be given another chance? Let me know. And I read a lot of comments on the previous video with people saying, oh, they're just games, why does it matter? And I agree, they are just all games. And even if they're controversial, you're right, it's up to the individual person at the end of the day and whether they want to play the game or not. But when it comes to violence or other games actively sending bad messages, it becomes less black and white because everyone gets influenced differently. I mean, you may be someone who doesn't get influenced by games at all, but there are other people out there who easily can be, so it really just depends. But anyway guys, that's all from me. I'm your host Eamon Hassan, and I'll see you next time. Bye!